who we love too, and they were wonderful and always cheery and always smiling at us whenever we went in, and it was a joy to go in and see them. And there was Old Bill, and I won't say anything more than to say I never got myself caught over in the dog food section with Old Bill and Young Bill. And I loved them all, and they were a great crew, and Blanche, of course. And there's the old story about before the dial system came in, that Mrs. Conran, somebody tried to call Blanche on the phone in 1959 when the phone switched over, and somebody tried to pick up the phone to call Blanche, and Mrs. Conran said, "Oh, you won't get Blanche because I just called her a cab. She's going to get her hair done in Reading." So that's how small the town was. Great town and a great store and an absolutely wonderful family. Thanks.
I just want to say that, Pat reminding us about what a small town it is. Even though, many years ago it was a very small, you could name the families. Even today, though, that it's 15,000 people, it's still, you can name the families. You can, they talk about the Conrans, but, the children of, so it would be the lady's son's children are now in the store. It's repeating history time and time again. That's what the store is. And it's wonderful. When they walk in, we do know the names. Even with 15,000 people in town, you can still name the names. You can name the children. You can also look up the nosy book and find out who they are, which is often done in the store. We still do that if we want to find out. As a runner, I run around town. I have a tradition of looking at people's, like houses. I will name your driveway again. It's a similar thing that goes on, and it's tireless and it's endless. And I think that's what's amazing about the Ryers, being the heart of North Reading. And, we have, with it, that, as I keep repeating, is the tradition that continues over 100 years. I mean, one of my favorite ones, we talked about Homer. One of my favorite ones that Bill had was, they always had a cat on premises, and we're not allowed to have a cat, in the store these days, because, it's changed. But I do have a cat that Judy Hall gave me. It's my favorite thing, one of my favorite things in the store, but it sits under sort of our kind of wood stove. It has a little heartbeat because it has a battery in it. But every little kid that comes in, they're this small, they don't know that it's not real. And so they go straight to this cat. And it's sat there, it's named Molly, for good reason. And it's sat in the store for the last 5 years. And I can tell you now, it brings more joy, not only to the adults, but to the children that come in. And it was something that Bill had a cat. He had a cat that was always in the store, and I believe Molly has many cats in the store. A lot of cats.
Can't tell you how many.
So, the tradition lives on and continues on. Even though my cat's not quite real, it has very low maintenance, no feeding, no going outside. So I have a great cat. So, I'm sure that, there are more stories. So anyone else got a great story to come up and join? Come on up. You can sit where you are if you feel comfortable, wherever you'd like.
I'm Caroline Foster Smith. I've been in town since 1937. So I'm also a classmate of Bill's. So I've known the Ryer group for a long time. So I first went to the store when Molly was there running it. And of course the cats were out and the bread and I went in for an ice cream cone, a 5-cent ice cream cone. And Molly scooped the ice cream in the scoop, leveled it off, put it on the cone. So she was very frugal about not giving more than your share. Needless to say, I never went back for another ice cream at Molly's because I could get a bigger cone probably up in the center. And I also, my kids grew up in going to the store, I even graduated from bachelor school. And then my granddaughter came along, and she would stay overnight, and she'd say, "When are we going to Ryers' store?" And on the way to Ryers' store, I'd just look up Havel Street, and we'd walk down, and she would collect cans that were worth 5 cents along the way. She'd even go over the fence and down. And she went in one day, and she wanted a particular candy bar or something, and Joan Koppel was there. Well, Merrill didn't have enough cans to buy that. So Joan said, "Well, how much do you need?" And I guess she was short a nickel. So Joan said, "Okay, you can have it." So that's the way Ryers' store operated. And of course, I went into my paper every night, and Bill would always have something to say. "Here comes Caroline Foster Smith." And if my husband went in, he'd say, "Here comes Mr. Foster." So, fond memories of Ryers' store in this town.
Again, I love that tradition of like a child trying to purchase, a bar of candy. It still happens. I mean, it's like, say again, it's still repeated. We have kids that come in, they're getting all their pennies out. The line is really long. You can see people trying to get home. And there's this one kid in front with their pennies, counting them out. And you seriously just want to scoop them up and go, "It's okay." But because of the initiation of them coming to Ryers, picking the candy, wanting to pay for it, you don't want to ruin that moment for them. So you are patiently counting them out while everyone else is standing there staring at you. And then sometimes they are short a penny. But that still goes on. Every one of us in the store will to this day say that. Don't worry, it's okay, you've got it. Don't worry about the 5 cents, 10 cents, because they picked it up. There's no way you're going to turn them away. And this is 100 years later, and as I said, we're 20 miles outside Boston, and no one's going to believe that this still lives on in a town like this. This still continues. And Ryers has embraced it full-heartedly. So thank you for that great story, because it is true to this day with the kids. Steve, come on up. You always got. Steve grew up in town.
I grew up in town, and I think I got my first fill of nourishment at Ryers' store.
Cavities probably too.
Cavities too, yeah, cavities too. My earliest memories, born and raised there pretty much, earliest memories were going down to Ryers' store with my mother, and Molly was running the store at the time, and between them to this day, I used to have a sweet tooth for actually pies, so there were the old table talk pies in tin little containers.
Love those.
And I'd come in the store with my mother. Molly would take one out of the box, present me with the pie, which I'm sure my mother paid for later, and I always thought Molly baked me a pie. What a nice lady, you baked me a pie. And there were the cats around, and I remember being a young kid with my nose pressed against the glass cabinet and looking at all the penny candy and the scooped up Boston baked beans and things of that nature, and again, getting my fill there. As I got a little older and went to high school, after practices, we always adjourned to Ryers' store to go and make the phone call with the payphone for my mother to come pick me up. And in the meantime, we would have our Hostess cupcakes, we would have our Yankee Doodles, we would have our other pies and candy and all the rest of it. Coca-Cola, cream soda, root beer, all before dinner. And then I'd call my mother, she'd come down and pick us up in the big Oldsmobile. And on occasion, I wouldn't have the dime to make the call. I'd say, "Oh, I don't have a dime, I didn't have the money for what I was purchasing or eating either." So I'd say to Bill, "My mother's coming down, she'll bring you the money." It's like, all right, your credit's good. So I have to ask him for a dime. When I asked him for a dime for the phone, he was a bit hesitant. I said, "Well, other than that, we can hang out here. I'll give you the dime." A few years later, when I was about 18 years of age, I decided to run for office, unsuccessfully, I'll mind you. Bill used to chase me out of the front of the store once in a while trying to gather signatures, because I was of the other persuasion. There were nonpartisan elections in North Reading, however, very partisan community when it came to Republicans and Democrats. You know, but he was always gracious and allowed me to get signatures. In between there, many of you know, Bill served a number of years on the school committee, 20-some odd years on the school committee. A lot of those years with my father. And all the business that was transacted for the school department, signing bill and payroll warrants, signing signatures on things, it wasn't done at town hall. It wasn't done at the superintendent's office. It was all at Ryers' store. No, honest to God. All the bill and payroll warrants were there at his counter. The people would come in, members of the school committee, would sign it at Ryers' store. All the local politics, all of the local business was transacted right there in front of this guy. He held court. I think I had the first charge account at Ryers' store. The Congregational Church had an auction. I was a high school kid. And I got, one of the things was a gift certificate for Ryers' store. I came in and I said, I had a $25 gift certificate, which was a lot of money at the time, late 60s, early 70s. And I said, hey, Bill, I got the gift certificate. He went, oh, no. Well, I wasn't going to go to buy $25 worth of goods that day, so he had to run a charge account for him. So every time I came in, he'd have the 25, and he'd open up the little ledger, take 87 cents off, 56 cents off. That lasted me about 6 months. That Bill had to do, good thing he's a bookkeeper, he's an accountant. But I think I had the first charge account at Ryers' store. One of the other important things to mention right now is, big thing is, buy local. Well, everybody bought locally at the Ryers, but more importantly, I'm so pleased and happy that this guy bought local, that he sold local, because the transition was going to be tough. It's been so easy. And it was great that Bill, you sold it to a good local family, good local guy. And I'm glad you bought local and made the investment. And it's really been a great transition. It's wonderful to be here for the 100th birthday of Ryers' store. Great family, great cast of characters over the years that have worked there, and great contribution to the community.
Right away, I'm not that old.
So come on up. Who's got some other stories? Oh, we got hands all over. Happy, come on up, love. Thank you, Happy. Happy, as you all know, is part of the historical committee too. So I'm pretty pleased to have you here. I nearly said hysterical, but oh well. If you look at the background too, I just want to make sure that you see these wonderful old pictures. Now we have our artist in residence here, Louise Anderson. So I do, they take pride. They came from my house, and I look at them every day. They're at the bottom of my stairs, and I do love those. So thank you, Louise.
Well, I think at this point we should talk about the antecedent for Ryers' store.
Right.
We moved to town in 1959 when we were married and had a small house down on Lower Elm Street near the road to the pumping station. But of course, with a family, you tend to outgrow space quickly, and we purchased this Edwin Foster house right across the street there, which used to be the Byway gift store, probably. It was perfect for us because with Steve's painting, he had a good studio space, which he, of course, has to share with my rug enterprise. But one thing that's interesting is that Edwin Foster, a shoe salesman and shoemaker, had a little shop next to what is our house. And on an old map, that building is shown, a map of 1889. That building is shown as belonging to an E.N. Flint. In another excerpt, I found that E.N. Flint, sometime after 1889, must have sold that little building to Ryers. And that is the beginning of Ryers' store, because it was moved from the south side of the Putnam House to